Today we're with Bob Morgan from Baker Hughes in the Middle East. Bob, can you just share about who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, sure. So Bob Morgan, as Kenny said, I work for Baker Hughes in the Middle East. I'm the Services and Projects Delivery Director, so responsible for a product line, one of the product lines in our subsea portfolio, based there for 10 years. And, you know, people say subsea in the Middle East, but the terminology is slightly different. It's offshore, right, in the Middle East. So when I first went there, it was a challenge because I was always subsea, deep water stuff, medium water stuff. And then I went there and people looked funny at me, subsea. But then I became the terminology. I learned the offshore. And believe it or not, in the Middle East, you know, there's a huge offshore market, you know, which we term as subsea. And the opportunities there are you know, enormous. And you look at the key NOCs that work out there, most of their work is, you know, offshore, what we term subsea. So yeah, it opened my eyes to move into a different place, move into Middle East, and you know, how terminology, and you've got to get the terminology correct, or else you'll continue to get looked at.
And you must have learnt that, and you've been to West Africa and everything else. But where did you start from? Where did you grow up? Aberdeen?
Yeah, I grew up in Aberdeen and out in the country. I was out in Udney Green and then in Tarvis. But when I started, obviously, primary school, I came into Bridge of Dawn.
Yeah.
But not the Bridge of Dawn as we know it now. Basically, the Bridge of Dawn where I think the Black Dog was in the Legion were the two pubs.
Yeah, they were the centre.
Right, that was the central hub of Bridge of Dawn. And we stayed at the council houses just beside the Black Dog. Very, very convenient for my father. But yeah, if you see Bridge of Dawn now, and even, you know, when I was growing up in Bridge of Dawn, how much it's expanded.
Yeah.
And yet we've still got a base there in Bridge of Dawn, what we come back to when we come back and visit family. But yeah, born and brought up there. As I said earlier in the quick fire questions, you know, I left school very, you know, not a lot of qualifications, didn't like school.
Yeah.
And my only goal was to make money. So I got offered a job as a chef, and I thought, yeah, I'll try that. So I did that for about 5-6 years, actually qualified. But the hours were horrendous. And then did many jobs in between that. You know, money was my key driver, you know, make as much money as possible and do any job, from driving a van to, you know, delivering parcels, just anything I could get. And then I got a good opportunity in way back, you know, before I even entered the oil and gas industry, with Bristol Helicopters. First of all, working on the ramp, so, you know, getting the helicopters ready to go offshore, parking them up at night, fueling them, etc. And then from that, it led on to like a job in maintenance, so in the heavy maintenance department, which was great. But then I always got in the back of my head, you know, all these guys going offshore, it must be great.
Yeah.
And I spoke to some of my friends, and they were either like it or, I guess, love it.
I guess they were earning a lot more money than you, though, when they were going off.
Exactly. So then again, luck had it that, you know, a very good family friend of ours said, you fancy, you know, job at Vetco? Come for the interview. So I went for the interview and was successful. So over 2.5 decades ago, you know, I started in Vetco Grey in Bridge of Dawn.
What was your job there? Just like, is it an apprentice?
So no, I was like a mechanical fitter.
Okay.
So no, I was too old for. That would have been a senior apprentice. So yeah, I started there.
I mean, a dropping wage.
Yeah. As a mechanical fitter, working in the test and assembly at Bridge of Dawn there. You know, very fortunate. You know, it was a buoyant time. Overtime was aplenty, so it was good. And yeah, I was very fortunate as well. They put me through college to do the SVQ in mechanical engineering, and I just went from strength to strength from there on. You know, I was fortunate to work with some really good people who now are still some of my good friends. Yeah. And then I got the opportunity to go offshore. So I spoke to my wife and I said, what do you think? She says, well, if you don't give it a try. So then I went offshore in the North Sea to start with. And as I say, you wouldn't say you love it, but I liked it. I liked the camaraderie.
Where did you go?
I went to so first was on the Shell project, so Carlu, Penguin, what else? Yeah, some of the I was kind of working with a dedicated Shell team, So that was good. They didn't do like a month-to-month rotation, so it was very ad hoc.
Yeah.
So you would go offshore maybe for 10 days, come back for a few days, go off again.
So would you get like a offshore allowance, a kind of
Yeah, yeah.
an uplift in your wage if you went
So
offshore?
you got your basic wage, then there was your normal, your offshore bonus, as they
Yeah.
called it. And then I got the opportunity to go to Houston, so I went offshore Gulf of Mexico, and that was a real eye opener.
Still with Echo.
Still with Echo, still there. Went there, and I thought, being quite new to the industry, that the Houston, wow, that's going to be the hub of the offshore industry. I did get an eye opener. I thought, wow, they were quite behind to where we were in the North Sea.
Yeah.
So that was an eye opener. So I did a few trips there, then came back, and I was again very fortunate. I went to West Africa, Angola.
Yeah.
And the normal, oh, we need you to go down there for one trip, Bob. Okay, fine. And then again, fate, one guy left the pool of people that were doing month to month, and the opportunity came up to go month to month, and I did that for 3.5 years, which thoroughly enjoyed. It gives you.
What was your job then? Still mech fitter?
So no, I was offshore. I was running subsea equipment, so
Okay.
subsea trees, subsea manifolds,
Yeah.
flexible pipe, etc. I just worked on the Side Coast 701 and the Transocean Radar, which were both in the North Sea. I'd worked on both of them.
Yeah.
And then when they said, "Oh, you go down to Angola," I thought I must be state-of-the-art rigs down there. But it was basically the
same rig.
the same rigs, but with a slap of paint on them. And then laterally, I was dedicated to the Maersk Achiever vessel, which was great.
Yeah.
Maersk treat you very well. We were based doing the Chevron projects, so no, it was good. It was a good experience. Good experience because I think if you look at it from a learning point of view, when I went to Angola, my most experience had been in the North Sea.
Yeah.
You get tools offshore, you run the tools. If they fail, there's always a backup. You put the tools back once the job's finished to either Montrose or Aberdeen side to get refurbished. In Angola, when we came back from a job offshore, where's the rental department to refurbish the tools? Now you are the rental department.
Wow.
So that was good. That was a really good learning curve where we had to strip all the tools ourselves, build them up.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that learning is invaluable, to take that away. And then also, immersing yourself a little bit in the culture. When you're offshore, you could be offshore in the world.
Yeah.
But when you're in Angola, we were in Luanda and Cabinda, was the two bases, predominantly in Cabinda. And, we were training some of the local lads,
yeah.
to be offshore technicians. And they would want their food sometimes in the staff house. And it's always good to try and, immerse yourself, to taste a bit of their food that they were having,
Yeah.
which is totally different from the stovies that I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier on. But again, what that does is if you demonstrate to them, you show an interest, it's really
Just building rapport,
builds
building
that rapport and relationship. So
I'm guessing it's good for the working environment if you guys are working together
Yeah.
offshore. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, if you show an interest in their culture, and I think it's the same with anything, if you show an interest in the culture and the country you're living in and the people, they'll give that back to you.
Yeah.
So that was a lesson I learned, that two things you always remind is get immersed in the culture and look after your driver, right? They're the key people in the whole setup when you're working overseas.
I mean, you said Houston was a bit backwards or for what you expected, or behind, maybe not backwards. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I think backwards is not the right word, but I think just behind, like you went offshore expecting them to be the high tech gurus of the oil and gas industry, but as it transpires, it was probably the North Sea and the people in the UK, Scottish people and Scottish companies that had taught the Texans how to do it.
Yeah.
Right, and my assumption was that we took good learnings from the Texans. Now I'm sure there was some learnings,
Yeah.
but just things that they were doing which we had stopped doing years ago in the North Sea.
You think,
right?
gone back as far as like the Piper, maybe that made a difference because of the things that's then been put in place here?
Look, these oil and gas disasters, you can never point fingers at them, and I just think that there's huge learnings to be taken from any incident, however unfortunate it is. I wouldn't say that they're being backwards or not being so up to speed with things had any contributing factor to any of the industry, the disasters. But I just think it was
just a mentality thing then, our mindset.
yeah, I think it's like, let's go, let's get it done sort of attitude, which now in the industry, obviously, as we know, it's always think about before you make the next step, you know, ensure that everything's in place, all the safety barriers, all the safety mechanisms, and think before you move to the next step. So again, you know, I haven't been offshore there for years, I've probably, last time I visited was Houston was four years ago at the oil and gas event. And, you know, there's still a little bit of that mentality. Yes, go, go, go. But look,
even things like turning up and just getting on the chopper and flying versus here, getting your coveralls, everything.
Yeah.
Like that is very...
Yeah, doing your full HSE. Even in Angola, you know, we would have the same there going offshore. It was just basically your life jacket was under your seat. You get in the chopper and away you go.
Yeah.
But I guess the industry, you know, you've got to take learnings from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And the industry now, you know, if you look at it from a safety point of view, it's done a 360, right? You've got to think safety and quality first, and then, you know, you move on to do the job. And then the strength to be able for people to stand up and speak and stop things when they don't see it's right. And I think that's probably where I see the biggest mindset change, is the acceptance of people standing up and saying stop, and the people actually stopping.
Yeah.
You know, if I look at it from, you know, 20 years ago,
told to fuck off.
Basically, told, no, do one, we need to get the job done.
Yeah.
You know, but it's certainly changed.
And we've spoke to a few people, and that's something they said. Bob Keeler mentioned the same thing. Davis Larson at ProServe also mentioned the same thing. Having that culture within your business where people feel safe enough and comfortable enough to, whether it's the cleaner or the CEO, if you see something happening, having that confidence within the business, to say that, it's a big thing.
It's a huge thing, and I think it stems right from the top, is seeing them challenge and stop, and then you know, throughout the whole organization, people will then have that confidence to be able to stop without any retribution or retaliation, you know. And it's got to be like that. You cannot operate any other way, you know. And that's not just in the oil and gas industry, right? It's in daily life. You see something, you should, you know, go and speak to them and say, you know, simple thing, but maybe, you know, you see somebody up a ladder with nobody holding it. You should maybe stop for a minute and just hold the ladder for the person, right? Or say, have you got somebody helping you? Because I think you would, or I certainly would, I'd hate to think that I'd walk past that and then the person fell off the ladder and, God forbid, something happened to them. So it's just having that foresight to look at things and say, what could happen if nobody's holding that ladder? And that's just a simple example, but if you look at that as you walk through life, it's just looking at things and thinking, what if, you know? But then you've got to be mindful as well, you don't analyze everything, right? Or else you'll never get anything done.
So you came from Udney, so you're like the perfect example of how global this energy industry is, and the opportunities for people for Aberdeen, or not just for Aberdeen, but people working in and around Aberdeen, the companies. You've been in Baku, you've been in West Africa, you've been in Angola, you've been in Houston, I think Romania,
Turkey,
other places around the world. So how gone from here to these different places, what's the kind of cultural shift, or what's the differences that you've experienced, or the biggest challenge you've had?
I think one of the biggest challenges when I went to Romania, and never been to Romania before, but I was a support engineer in the customer's office, and the cold, it was, the rig actually froze. It was minus 47 with wind chill factor, and the rig froze, and we froze. We had to go and get special gear. So I didn't expect that for Romania, but then in the summertime, Constanta, where the shore base is actually a holiday resort. So it goes from one extreme, like Siberia, to being a Spain, right? A holiday resort. I think if you look at the Middle East, the culture there, I remember going there, and I always like to be on time for a meeting, or early, so you can prepare. You're not waiting for people, right? I remember going to the Middle East, and I've got a meeting with such and such, you know, it's at 10 o'clock in Abu Dhabi. So you get up early, drive through Abu Dhabi, Yeah, well, we moved the meeting to tomorrow, inshallah. That was really challenging to start with. It was always like, yeah, we'll get it done. There wasn't the same
quick pace,
bang, 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 quick pace, right?
Yeah.
But they do get stuff done, but it's just like getting used to that. So getting used to, yeah, Bob, take a step back. You can't work in the same way as you worked in Europe or in Aberdeen, where it seems to be that, yeah, just let's get it done.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a challenge and to start with in the Middle East. I think if you look at the other places, I worked in Turkey as well, very similar to the UK. It was based in the customer's office and a lot of expats there, lots of different agency driven.
Have you always been back and forth? You've never been based in these places?
Never been. So in Turkey, Romania, it was always a rotation.
Yeah.
Houston, same. It wasn't until obviously the Middle East when I moved out there permanent.
So it was what, 10 years ago, 2016?
Yeah.
So how has it changed there for when you went? Because obviously, I mean, we go there once or twice a year. We go to ADIPEC and things like that, and you see the scale of things.
Yeah, I think, look at scale. If you look at Dubai, I mean, we used to go. Me and my wife used to go there on holidays long before we moved there. And when we first went there, Sheikh Zayed Road was the main artery through Dubai, and if you look even at Jumeirah Beach, there was very little, in Jumeirah Beach. I remember you used to be able to drive your car down onto the beach.
Right.
And now obviously it's just, Dubai's just expanded exponentially, out with the centre. We stay probably 25, 30 minutes outside the central hub of Dubai, and the ranches 2. There's now an Arabian Ranches 3. It just keeps expanding. And when I look at it, I think, wow, when's this building going to stop?
Yeah.
But they just continue, keep building.
When's the bubble going to burst?
It's burst before, right, in
Yeah.
2008. But there seems to be a confidence. There seems to be, a lot of companies setting up there.
The house prices have just gone through the roof.
The house prices have went, astronomical through the roof. But yeah, it's the expansion there just seems to be unbelievable, and I guess the attraction is, once you set up, I think it's relatively easy to do business there. Yeah, it'll have its problems and little corners and stuff you need to navigate around. But from a work point of view, I think the biggest thing is obviously the tax benefit for companies and for personal income. So yeah, it's frightening how it just keeps expanding.
Yeah.
And I do think, is this going to stop? Is there going to be a huge burst again?
Yeah.
I don't know. Right?
But there's lots of companies from here specifically, or the supply chain within the energy sector, who are looking at, or have been for the last 10 years, looking at diversifying into the Middle East as a new revenue earner, because the North Sea is becoming tougher, the margins becoming less.
Yeah.
For a company going from here to there, what's the biggest sort of challenges or opportunities? Because the other thing we hear here is it's very much lowest price wins.
I wouldn't fully agree with that. Okay. Challenges, there can be challenges doing business, right? Now, things are changing. So when I first went there a decade ago, you had to have a local partner.
Yeah.
That was a must. And every local partner, every local business is the best things, is sliced loaf, right?
Yeah.
They'll do amazing things for you, right?
Bring in all the work.
All the work's going to come. You just sit and relax in Aberdeen, we'll do everything for you. Is that the reality? Absolutely not, as companies that have set up there. So it's very important that you pick, if you do go with a partner, you select the correct partner, right? And it's something I support, and through the Global Scot Network, which I'm a part of, we can support companies making the kind of correct decisions. But if you look at it, now the regulations are changing slightly, so you can set up a company without a partner.
Yeah.
Now it's all different guises, right? It's different mechanisms, etc. If I take Baker Hughes, for example, one of our product lines set up a new headquarters in Abu Dhabi, built a new manufacturing site, and we're manufacturing there. There is a big push for ICV in Abu Dhabi or UAE. which, you know, does put pressure on companies because, you know, you need to contribute to that ICV. Iktiva in Saudi Arabia, and the majority of us around spend in the country, right?
Yeah.
If I'm being strictly honest, right? Yes, it's about training locals, Emiratis, Saudis, and you know, trying to be more dependent on them. If we look at Saudi Arabia, we're probably 70% in kingdom of locals.
That's what any country would want to do, isn't it?
Yeah. Which I get.
Yeah.
It's a bit more of a challenge in the UAE, and that's probably because of the population, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the population of the UAE, the percentage of Emiratis versus you know, expatriates or people coming in from other countries, it's huge,
Asia,
right?
and whatever else.
Yeah. So it's a lot harder to do it there, but you know, you've got to try and meet these targets. It's challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do your utmost to try and do that. So that is the challenges, but the benefits, I think, outweigh the challenges. Once you get your business established and the business name and the quality and the service you deliver to this,
you get that reputation.
You get the reputation. It's all about, you're never ever going to be able to come into the Middle East and get a quick win, right? Any company that's looking to do that, I would urge you against it, because it's not going to happen, right? You've got to build, as I said to you earlier, I think we spoke about this a few times, relationship.
Yeah.
You must build strong relationships with your customers, with your vendors, with your service providers, with everyone, and things will bear fruit. If you just go in and say, right, I'm going to take this order, make a huge chunk of money and walk out, you'll maybe do that once or twice, but then for the longevity of the business, you've got to look at it and think, I'm going to be here, I'm going to make a commitment to the Middle East or the UAE, wherever it may be, and I'm going to make sure that our company's a name that is recognized in the Middle East, right? So that's where I think it's very important.
And what about from a personal point of view? So you prior to that, you were on rotation everywhere you went, but this time you actually picked up and moved there.
Yeah.
What about family? Your wife, she's their way. How was it for them moving from Bridgetown to Dubai?
I think it was a challenge for my wife.
Yeah.
I probably was a bit selfish.
Okay.
Not selfish in the way that I forced her to go there. You know, she relished the thought of going there.
Yeah.
Our kids were up.
And like you said, you'd been there for holiday.
Yeah.
She knew where she was going.
She knew where she was going. She thought she was getting the 5-bedroom mansion with a huge pool and everything.
The holiday.
Unfortunately, that wasn't the reality. But yeah, look, because I'd worked away overseas in lots of different locations, you know, we went there. We set up. We got a house, and I would just go to my work every day, and I would say, just go to the pool, go for coffee.
Yeah. Not
really thinking, you know.
She's not got the
she didn't have the network, and because our children were growing up, we didn't have children going to school.
Yeah.
So you didn't have that network. But very fortunate to meet, you know, a lot of people in the industry or service providers, and then the wives met each other. So we've got a really good, strong community now in Dubai. So yeah, it took a good 18 months for her to settle in. As I said, my oldest daughter was already in the Middle East. She was in Abu Dhabi with her husband, and with one daughter lived here in Aberdeen, still lives in Aberdeen. So yeah, it's again, it's not something for everyone. You go there, you set up, and you think, oh, this is going to be easy. But again, that is a challenge in itself. Yeah. Right. For me, probably, if I'm honest, a bit selfish, thinking, just get on with it, just go and have coffee. Yeah. You know, go and. But it is hard. So you've got to think about if you've got family, it's different because it's a different community of people you'll have. But if you don't have family, little kiddies, it's going to school and stuff. Again,
it's difficult to make that relationship as an adult.
Yeah. But now, obviously, a decade down the line, you know, it's all good. We've got very, very good friends. My wife plays golf, you know, on a regular basis.
Well, I spoke about that. It's becoming very expensive to play golf there.
It certainly is, yes.
Our golf days are like doubling the price every time.
Yeah.
It's becoming impossible.
I think it's, you know, supply and demand, right? So it's a huge demand. So, you know, the supply is limited, so then they can basically put up the prices.
So many tourists coming in.
Yeah.
as another driver there.
Yeah.
You were Vetco, GE, Baker, so you kind of followed that through a few mergers and things like that. What's your experience of that?
I think if you look at it, change is inevitable, right? And you've got to either embrace the change. There's no point in fighting against it.
Yeah.
So
these are massive companies.
So the Vetco GE, so it was GE Oil and Gas acquired Vetco Gray in 2007, and that was, I would say, probably more of a smoother transition.
Okay.
When Baker Hughes and GE Oil and Gas, again, they merged. It wasn't a buy-over.
Yeah.
So GE acquired Vetco. The Baker and GE was a merger of the two companies. And that was more challenging, I think, because both big, strong companies, both big, strong, cultures within their companies.
Yeah.
And we're better than you, sort of thing.
Two big American companies.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, the key thing to the success or succeeding through big changes like that is you've got to embrace the change.
Yeah.
If you don't embrace the change, you will get caught up in, they're better than us, that's better, and it just consumes so much.
What about driving culture within these massive? You're talking tens of thousands of people. How do you?
Yeah, I think, look, if you look at the culturally, our product line, so we're subsea and surface pressure systems. We've got quite a small team in the Middle East. So from a cultural point of view, we've got 4, 5 different nationalities. And again, I'm very transparent and open with the team members. You've got to speak to them. You've got to embrace their culture as well. If you don't do that, you'll get caught up. If it's me, Bob, coming from Scotland, from Aberdeen, this is how we're doing it. You're going to fail.
Yeah.
You're going to fail.
You just don't have the support.
No, and you've got to ensure that your team or your team members and the wider team in Baker Hughes, and any corporate company for that fact, again, it's feeling comfortable, be able to speak and say, I don't really agree with that. Can we look at doing it this way?
Yeah.
But as leaders in the business, we've got to be able to sit and say, yeah, we will look at that. Not just say, no, this is the way we're doing it, because we've done that for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess if you look at, that was one thing I had to learn a bit as well, because it was always, I'm quite a compartmentalized person. I have things and I do them as tasks and get them done. This is the way you do them.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older and learned, there's different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Right. So the way that I've always done it isn't necessarily the right way.
Yeah.
So you've got to learn from the different cultures. So no, culture is one thing that is key to success. If you fight against change in culture, you won't succeed going forward.
Yeah. So
I pride myself on our small teams. We've got, as I said, I think 5 different nationalities and cultures.
Yeah.
And it's great because they celebrate different holidays, so you celebrate along with them.
Yeah.
In the middle.
So you're always on holiday.
Well, I wish, Kenny. But if you look at it from a cultural point of view, obviously I'm home in UK, celebrating the festive period with our family, and we just celebrated Eid prior to coming, which was the Middle Eastern holiday as well.
Yeah.
So, and then there's Indian festivals,
Yeah.
and we do get immersed in it, and it's one thing that Baker's very good at is embracing all the different cultures, and they have culture days, they have the celebrations for UE National Day and stuff like that, and they get everyone involved, which is good,
And your own career through the changes, so how did you progress then from mech tech to where you are today? What was your...
so did the mechanical technician, in the test and assembly, then moved to offshore technician, offshore running subsea equipment. And then I moved to more of a support engineer role. So basically in the customer's office, being there for support for the offshore teams. And then I moved into a technical sales role. So basically it was at a time where the business saw a need for people that had the technical background of the product lines, and to support the account managers.
Yeah.
So some of the account managers didn't have the vast experience technically.
Yeah.
So I moved to a technical sales role in Europe. So basically supporting all the account managers in Europe. It was a very small team. So really enjoyed that. Then moved into account management myself. So responsible for a couple of the key accounts here in the UK. And then when I was in the technical sales role, that's when I came out to Middle East initially to support, and they said there's an opportunity to go out there. And then there was a bit of a dip in 2016, just not long after I'd started. And it was a bit worrying, you know, it was still going to keep us out there. But I did a dual role, and that's where I took over the flexible pipe business, a very successful business we've got out there in the Middle East. And we grew that exponentially over the last decade. And it's down to the team's, you know, hard work and dedication. But yeah, so that's where I've kind of grown from. And then latterly, I've moved more into overseeing the project execution and you know, interfacing with the people.
As you build the team up. And
so now we've got a lady who leads sales and strategy, we've got project people, we've got commercial and contracts people, but we still have a very small team in Dubai, supported by the UK back office, as we call it. But without them, you know, we wouldn't have the success we've got. You know, they're very, you know, instrumental to the.
I mean, when you say you've grown that exponentially, what kind of growth are we talking?
Tenfold, 20-fold. You know, when I went there, the flexible pipe business was, you know, probably 5-10 million. Now we're up over 200 million. Yeah. You know, so it's a lot of it's to do with the continued growth in the Middle East, specifically Saudi Arabia offshore. And then the dedication from the team to grow it, right? So you need your team to be as enthusiastic as I am, right? I've still got the passion for the business. A lot of people say, I just celebrated a big birthday a couple of months ago, and a lot of people say, you've still got a passion at that age. How do you do it? Yeah. And I said, look, I still enjoy what I'm doing. And if you don't have passion, I don't think you can succeed, right? You need that drive. You need the drive. If you're just turning up to work, turning up to the office, and, you know, taking a salary, which there is still a lot of that globally, right? Not just with our company, with every company, I'm sure. But you've got to have a passion and drive to move forward, you know, a vision that you want to succeed, and I've still got that. And hopefully I'll still have that for years to come.
And what's the challenges then going for, you spoke about going to different countries, but what's the challenges in progressing from working offshore to leading a team, managing people, having the suit on? How have you transitioned through that, or what's been the biggest challenges for you?
Wow. Look, there's always the money, right? When you go offshore, it's big money. And then you come onshore and there's that hit to your salary, right? Because you don't get your offshore bonus. But then, you know, there's the curve, right? So you've got to take the dip to come back up. Yeah. So initially financially, because you think, wow, I was on that, now I'm on this. So it's financial. And then you look at it, it's not easy to manage people, right? Again, you'll know that from your line of work. So, but again, people are key to the success. You can't do anything on your own. So one of the challenges is ensuring that your people come along the journey with you, all right? You've got to ensure that they understand where you're going and the reasons why the business is going that direction. Yeah. As I said, that our company and many huge corporate companies are going through dramatic change, right, in the last probably 3 to 5 years. Yeah. And people that don't understand, and that's probably unfair to say people that don't understand, you've got to help them understand. Yeah. You know, because if you don't help them understand the reason for the change, then they won't adopt the change. And then that's where you really have a struggle. So I think for me is really adopting to the change. Yes, sometimes there's things that I don't like in the change. But again, I understand the reason from a business point of view why we're making the change. Yeah. It still doesn't mean that I agree with it, but you know, it's how the organization is going and what's driving us forward. So I think it's ensuring that the people you work alongside and the people that you maybe mentor understand the change and why we're doing the change. Because if they don't understand that, it'll just be, oh, we're making this change again, and it's, you know, it's going to be more changes for the sake of change, but it's not. As you know, in business, there's rationale for everything.
It's just it's hard to get that message across various countries and lots of different people.
Very, very hard, and different cultures take it different ways, right? Yeah, yeah. And it's how you communicate it. Yeah, you can put a blanket communication out, and people ultimately don't read it, right? Yeah. As you know, we get thousands of emails in our inboxes. Yeah. Baker Hughes communication, delete. Yeah. So it's how you communicate that to your peers, and then how they communicate that down to their peers, right? So it's making it clear. We've set up like a bi-weekly meeting where it's not a meeting to discuss work as such.
Okay.
It's a meeting just to have an open conversation about how's everyone doing. You know, we understand there's these changes. Is that
due to the mental health aspect now becoming a bigger thing within the
it probably is.
Companies?
I made a conscious effort a few years ago of just having this every couple of weeks, bring in cakes, donuts, whatever. We'll have coffee. We'll go through, you know, one of the team members every 2 weeks I'll do like a well-being moment, you know, or discuss anything they want.
Yeah.
And then we'll just have a chat. We'll give everybody, you know, 10 minutes each, you know, how's things going? Are you okay with everything that's going on at work?
Have you seen a big shift in that side of things within the industry or the last 20, 30 years?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
But more recently, probably.
Probably in the last 2-3 years,
yeah,
it's been highlighted a lot more. I think, again, culturally,
yeah,
in the Middle East, it's something that people are more concerned about speaking about, because it's, again, different culture.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to still discuss it, but in a different way, right? Because if you look at different cultures, and I'm not going to mention countries because it's unfair to them, but different cultures, it's uncool to speak about if they're struggling.
Yeah.
They'd rather just say, I'm fine, I'm okay, yeah, the work's getting done.
Just get on with it.
And then a few weeks down the line, you find out it hasn't been done, and they don't ask for help, because in their culture, it's not cool to ask for help.
Yeah.
Which is a barrier we need to try and break down, right?
How does a company like Baker Hughes then try and
again,
get over that hurdle? Because that must be a big one for you guys. A company that size, things need to be done.
Things need to be done, and we have in the Middle East, we have a lot of culture days. We promote well-being, you know.
More training.
There is training, but I think training is not the only way. You've got to get down to grassroots and speaking to people, and that's my take on it. Yeah. Training is all well and good. People will do the training, but it's maybe sometimes just going and, you know, taking someone for a coffee.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you've got someone of a certain culture, it's struggling, but because of the culture, they don't want to say they're struggling. But, you know, you'll maybe notice something. So you go and take them aside and say, look, you know, you just have that open conversation with them.
Yeah.
The candid conversation, because on a one-to-one, they'll probably open up a bit.
Open, yeah.
But in a team environment, certain individuals and cultures won't open up. So it's just how you handle it and how you work through it as a business, right? It's not one model fits all, because, as you know, if you go across the globe, every culture is different. You know, you go to Houston, for example, people will be like, God damn, nothing wrong, mental health, you know, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas here in the UK and Europe, there's a big focus on it, and rightly so. You've got to be able to take into consideration all the different cultures.
And then if you were say you were speaking to, I don't know, a kid now for Aberdeen, it's becoming tougher here, and they were looking for a career like yours, where they were going to travel the world within the energy sector.
Yeah.
What would be your sort of recommendation or advice to them?
I think probably every youngster that listens to this podcast will totally disagree with me, but it's fine. I think the energy sector is still an exciting sector to be in.
Yeah.
I think you've got to walk before you can run, is one thing I say to them. You know, there seems to be this desire nowadays in the industry, and not just in our industry, in every industry, where I've done that for 2 years, so I should now be the VP.
Yeah.
It's not like that, right?
Yeah.
But if you work hard at it, you can become the VP.
Yeah. But younger people want things quick now.
People want things quick, and I don't know where that stemmed from.
Yeah.
It's good to see the passion, but my advice would be that, you know, and I actually mentor some youngsters within our organization. I think it's cool because, you know, I'm not going to be here forever. Somebody will have to replace me.
Yeah.
So if I can help these youngsters along the way with guidance, some of the stuff I say they might not take on board, but if they can take on, I don't know, 10, 15, 20% of what I'm giving them guidance,
it's going to help.
then great. And it makes my job easier as well. Because if you've got the youngsters coming through aspiring to be leaders of the future, you've got to support them. Again, you can't hold them back, but it's how you mentor them through and how you guide them to get to that end goal. And I think if you, again, it's all about discussing reality, go back to reality. I'm a person that, you know, I say what I think. Sometimes it doesn't go well in the senior leadership meetings. But again, it's just me being me, right? You're not going to change me, and you're not going to change people, right? Because people are born in different ways, and they've got different cultures, different makeups, you know, and you've got to go to every one of that different makeups and try and help them. So for youngsters today, it's interested, I would say, yeah, absolutely. The energy industry is still going to be here for years to come. It'll be in a different guise, but it'll still be here. There's some cool technology, right?
Massive.
And if you look at us now, who would have thought we're drilling wells remotely? So all that cool, funky digital stuff
boats,
as a youngster.
Boats floating about remotely.
Exactly. So it's still a cool industry to come into. That, I think, is the first message you need to get across, because everybody thinks oil and gas, it's dirty. You know, but it's came a long way, right? So still encourage people to come into this industry, and then just help them how you can, right? And guide them how you can. And I think being transparent with them, don't expect to be the CEO in 5 years.
It's no reality.
It's not going to be the reality, I don't believe.
Look,
there's some really cool companies out there who've got some really young senior management. And that's great as well, because you need that passion. So it's the passion and drive. You're
a good example of that, is coming through the whole thing and also progressing into a leadership role from on the tools, which sometimes people think is a negative. But I think in your case, the fact that you've had that experience and you can share that and pass that experience with people in different countries has been a massive positive for you and for your employer.
I think it's always remembering where you come from as well. I've got no issue going and putting the coveralls on and going on the shop floor and having a chat. And again, in certain countries and cultures, they won't do that, because they see that as, oh no, you're a manager now. So but I'll give you an example. I was in Newcastle last week at our manufacturing site, and again, every time I go there, I go down and speak to the guys and girls on the shop floor. You know, just have a chat with them. Be visible. Right? Be visible in your organization. Just because you're on a leadership team or you're the CEO or a vice president doesn't mean to say that you're not beyond going back down to the grassroots on the shop floor and saying, hi, how you doing? Everything okay?
And you're going to get feedback. You're going to get information.
Exactly. And then that shows the people that are actually making your business a success. Wow, this person cares. This person cares about the business. He cares about me. He cares that I'm part of the business. And that is huge nowadays, right? Because if you're in an organization and you don't thank your people for what they're doing.
People want to be visible.
You know, people want to be visible, want you to be visible. So anytime I go to any of our sites, I make sure that, you know, we go in the workshop. We go and talk to the guys and girls. Everything okay? You know, I was in Brazil a few weeks ago prior to coming back home. And we did the same. We went, you know, through the workshop, spoke to many people, had leadership engagements.
Rio
to
Newcastle.
Rio and Newcastle, but it's great. You know, they like it as well, because you're showing an interest in them. So it makes a big difference. You've got to show that you're invested in your people, and then the people will invest in the company.
And we're in the tap room, so normally I ask what's your drink of choice, but if you were to have a drink with anybody, who would it be for the energy sector?
Whew, wow. I'd like to have a drink and a chat with the energy minister.
Right. Where's that one?
that might be controversial, but you know, and there's a lot of our leadership just met at Downing Street, our CEO, and I think that, you know, not to criticise him, because obviously I'm sure he's heard it many times over, and I would be very critical, but just to try and get into their head and understand where they're going, because, you know, as I said, this energy industry is going to be here long when I'm gone, right? And for the next number of decades to come, regardless of, you know, clean energy, new energy, you need that as well. Absolutely. I'm not saying we turn off the tap. Well, you can't turn off the taps, because because that transition's not going to happen. So I think, yeah, maybe the energy minister, and just have a drink and a chat, and try and get into their head, and
Could make
see,
that a podcast.
you know, see where they're going, because it does concern me, coming from the northeast of Scotland, coming from Aberdeen, and having worked in the North Sea, and seeing what, well, look at it, seeing what it's given to me and my family, right? The oil and gas, or the energy, the opportunities, and kind of discussing that the industry can give opportunities. Yeah, we're doing things totally different to what we did 2.5 decades ago, right? When I came into the industry. We're cleaner, we are greener. And it's only going to get better as we go along. So it's getting into their head. So that's one person I would like to have a drink with, and a conversation. But there's many, right? There's people like Bob Keeler, you know, he's doing the Union Street regeneration. It's great to see people like that still invested in Aberdeen.
Still having a drive.
You know, still having that drive to do something. You look, I've been out of Aberdeen for 10 years, but I'm proud and passionate. You know, I still, you know, I come from Aberdeen.
You're from here.
I'm brought up here, proud to say I'm brought up in Aberdeen. I'm an Aberdeen supporter, right? For my sins, have been all my life. But yeah, so I would have a drink with anybody in the industry that's got a passion, right? To see it continuing and to see it grow.
Perfect. Bob, thank you very much.
No, thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Cheers.